Welcome to this webinar. Today we're going to talk a bit about internet safety. The way I have explained it here is safety internet, and we'll get back to this picture later on in our webinar. What I would like you to do, if I can, would like you to do, is participate in this webinar. So I've given you a bit of an agenda of what we would like to talk. We will start talking a bit about a few definitions so that we clarify what we want to talk about. I have approached the question of safety, especially in the internet, on 3 levels, and you see it here: physical, intellectual, and emotional levels. And we will be talking about each level a bit more in detail. And then finally, we will come to a situation where we have a few suggestions of how to keep the use of internet and keep ourselves safe in the context. If you have any questions at any time, please put them on chat. I would like to ask Zuhal to pick them up and to relay them so that we can answer them in real time, or if you prefer, you can wait until the end. There are a series of questions as well that we will ask you. Zuhal, are you able to bring them up when we on those polling questions? Are you able to pull them up? Zuhal?
Sorry. Yeah, we can.
So,
yeah.
So you've got the list of questions, and you'll bring them up when we get there. When we get to those slides. Okay, fantastic. So the first question really for all of you is this: how can we make this webinar interesting? You know, what are the rules you think you would like to follow to make this webinar interesting? And for this, I would like to send you straight to the Padlet. Well, I have this. Let me just edit it. I have this post here: rules to keep the webinar interesting. What rules do you think? Just anyone, just brainstorm. What kind of rules do you think would be important?
And okay.
Any suggestions?
You want them to write on the Padlet?
On the Padlet or on the chat, and then they'll write it on the Padlet. Whatever is easier.
Because I also give the link of the Padlet from the chat part. Yeah.
So I'll start writing then. For instance, do not talk over each other. Yeah, that could be a good rule for a webinar. Everybody takes turns to speak, and we listen. Yeah, I can put that as well. Listen to whatever participants have to say. Yeah, that's another rule, for instance, we would like to follow this. Any other ideas you would like to put here?
Keep the microphones off. Sorry, Danny, I'm going to mute you because
No worries. No worries.
Yeah, okay.
Any other ideas you have?
Some comics.
Sorry, what was that?
I don't know. Yeah. I think.
Okay, I'll just put something else. Let's say keep it interactive, for instance. Yeah, so that participants always feel involved, and then we can add more later on. Is that okay? As a start for the rules for our webinar, and if you have any more input later on, we can get back to this later on. Okay, I'll take it take you back to the main slide, and we'll get back to this slide later on in the presentation. You will see why. Okay, so then let's look at a few definitions. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about. So we talk about internet safety, and just wanted to make sure that we have a clear definition of what we talk about. So internet safety is not security. Security is something else. It's something else that we would have to discuss at a different stage. Here, what we look at is safety, which is the condition of being protected from a danger, from a threat. Okay. The difference between security and safety, for instance, is if I live on an island, on an uninhabited island on my own, I have full internet security because I'm not connected to the internet. There's nothing that can happen to me. But if I'm connected to the internet, I need some safety where I know there are threats around me, but I am being protected from them. That's the difference between safety and security. And then the other important aspect for us is to safeguard, which is how can we make sure there is no harm or damage done. Yeah. So how can it be kept safe in my activities on the internet? And it's not protecting. Protecting would apply specifically to a situation where somebody already has experienced harm or danger, and now they need to be protected. They need to be taken away and be protected with special measures. Yeah. That's the difference between those aspects. Now, in this webinar, we're only going to focus on safety and on safeguarding, which doesn't mean that security and protection are not important. They are very important. However, we would need to have a separate webinar, a separate course to look at them. Okay, so we really want to talk about safety and safeguarding. Is this clear so far to everyone? Are there any questions so far? Okay, if there are no questions.
No, just they have some, yes. They have some problems with the technical problems. I'm going to solve.
Oh, okay. Okay,
no
Jen
question,
said.
Danny. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It's almost interesting for me. I like it. Yes, these are the comments from the chat part. You can go on.
Okay, so I see Jan said can't hear my voice really well. I hope it improves. If not, we try something else. Okay, I go on to the next definition then. What is the internet? The internet is not a thing. It's not something undescriptive. It is something very specific, very concrete, and it's a global network of computers and other electronic devices that are connected to each other. And billions of computers, so it's not thousands, it's not millions, it's actually billions of computers and other electronic devices, such as your mobile phones, that are connected to each other. And the importance here really is the connection. Yeah. So by connecting all those devices together, we create the internet. And the next two statements I'm making sound very obvious, but they are very important to bear in mind for the purpose of this webinar. The devices are connected so that data can be exchanged. Yeah, and the exchange of the data happens in a variety of formats. So for instance, I can send an email, and that's basically text I send to somebody else, or I send a text message by mobile phone. But I can also send a picture, which is data compressed in an image format. It can be audio. I can send a recording file and download music. It can also be video. Yeah. And different forms, more and more with augmented reality, virtual reality, we get different formats of data that's being exchanged. But quintessentially, what we do when we connect on the internet, we exchange data. And the other thing that's also very important, even though it sounds obvious, is to remember that only connected devices can exchange data. If a device is not connected, it will not be able to exchange data, and therefore is also at the same time not exposed to the dangers of the internet. And I think this is very important to bear in mind. Internet safety is required because we choose to connect and we choose to exchange data. From a behavioral perspective, this is very important. It's not something that happens to us. It's not like COVID-19. It happens to us whether we like it or not. Internet safety is something that occurs if we choose to connect to the internet to exchange data. And that's something that's obvious, but we have to keep bearing it in mind. And just to give you another idea of what the internet is, in order to exchange data, those devices need to be connected. This is an image of the undersea cables that are connecting the world. Yeah, these are the cables that are thousands of meters below sea level, on the sea ground actually, yeah, that transported the data from one continent to another. And I think what's important here, or interesting here to see, is the connectivity, say, between the North America and Europe, between North America and Asia. It's really intense. There are a lot of cables undersea. There are hardly any cables undersea that connect to Africa, for instance. Not that many that connect to South America, for instance. And so we also see the distribution and the usage of the internet somehow follows some socioeconomics on a worldwide level. We talk about technology and about the internet as being the great leveler. From a democratic point of view, everybody's got access to the internet, everybody got access to all the information they need. However, we see that the distribution is not equal. It really follows the economic development of the countries. On the following slide, you can see the individuals who are using the internet up to 2019. That's the latest figures I could find. And so you see that both in terms of absolute numbers of people on the internet, and also in terms of percentage of population using the internet, it's increasing to a great deal. And it keeps increasing as well. On this slide, in fact, you can see how many people there are on the internet. So it's over 4.5 billion users. Yeah, there's more people using the mobile phone than there are people connected to the internet. Not all mobile phones in the world are connected to the internet. And the use of internet, obviously, you also get the use of social media and people connected to social media, which is another big aspect for us when we talk about internet safety, especially for young people, is people who are using social media. And you see that's 3.8 billion as of January 2020, which is huge number. However, there's also another interesting aspect here is less than half of the data exchange that we talked about before is actually made by humans. The majority of the internet exchange is done by machines. Some is here is classed as good non-human, so search engines and other software robots that do searches for people. And then there's also malicious non-human, so these are the fraudsters, the tricksters, and those who create spam, viruses, and so forth. But I think this is an interesting stats to bear in mind. There's a lot of data going around in the internet, but humans create only 44% of it, less than half. So when we talk about connectivity, internet, and safety, the question would be, what is your biggest concern? Why would we be concerned about being on the internet? And there's just two different. So there's something went up here. No, I apologize. Something's going wrong with my presentation, but it should be fine now, hopefully. Yes. Okay. So there was a research done in the United States, and this first answer is for the United States only. What do adults worry mainly when it comes to internet and privacy? So internet, and they're mainly worried about privacy, that the corporations, governments, or other people are trying to hack the data. Yeah, that's the biggest worry when they go on the internet. However, when they talk about their children going to the internet, their worry is completely different. They worry about bullying, for instance. They worry about being exposed to inappropriate content. And they also worry about the time spent on the internet. They're not they don't seem to be worried about the time they spend on the internet or the inappropriate content they may see on the internet, but they are for the children. So it's a different set of concerns when we talk about adults and when we talk about time spent on the internet seems to be a recurring theme when I talk to people and I talk to educators, and yet here it seems to be relatively low in the categories of worries that adults have with regards to children. I've also found this interesting statistic, how much time users spend on the internet every day. And you see in the middle, the white column is the worldwide average, that's just over 6 hours. And I've highlighted Turkey here, slightly on the left, is 7.5 hours roughly. So you all spend roughly 7.5 hours on the internet each day. Yeah, is this correct? Is that what you do?
I think, yeah.
Is that everybody? Almost, yeah, almost 7.5. So you make up with the average. What I found interesting as well on the stat is, you see, the further right you go on the scale, the more economically developed the countries seem to be. So Japan on one end, and the further left we go, Philippines, South Africa, they're lagging in economic development. So I do wonder whether that's got to do with the speed of the internet. So it takes you longer to download a page, for instance, and therefore you may spend more time on the internet. That could be one thing.
Yeah, you're so optimistic. It's not only for
Okay. So
yeah, this is our question.
Yeah.
Danny, can I put in a chat box your question, polling question? Okay, I did it. The whole. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the question here is this: that there are. I came to the conclusion that there could be 3 levels of safety that we need to look at: the physical, intellectual, and emotional safety. Now, I am fully aware this is an arbitrary distinction. Okay. And it came to me when a few months ago, a worried mother came to me asking me, her teenage daughter wants to register on the social media. They want to create an account. I'm a bit worried, but I don't know how to explain it to her. And you know, if you have experience with teenage daughters, it's very difficult to rationalize this. So I looked at it and described the potential threats in this template, so those 3 levels. And then I asked her to tell her daughter, look, ask her to research the use of that specific social media against those 3 titles, so that she can then analyze what it is, and if nothing else, it raises her awareness of the good use, good practices, and also dangers that lie in using social media. Now, I'm fully aware that in reality, those 3 levels may not always be clearly distinguished, but I think by having a clear distinction, at least from a theoretical point of view, we can then try to address them in a better way. So if I just wanted to give you an example of how would you, this following behavior, how would you classify it? So for instance, if you are in a group chat and you call somebody, you say, this person is stupid. Yeah. What kind of threat are we looking at here? Is it a physical, intellectual, or emotional threat if you call somebody stupid? Any ideas? Any suggestions? Emotional, yeah. Yeah, and I would fully agree with that as well. What if we set up a website and we encourage young people to self-harm? Are you familiar with the term self-harm? Is that understood? Self-harm? Yes. Okay. So that's physical. Yes. Serap says, yeah, physical. I think that'd be absolutely physical abuse in a way, or it's a physical threat. So kids can self-harm. Although personally, I also think there's some sort of emotional or intellectual threat to it as well. If people see self-harm as a norm, as an acceptable standard, Yeah, there's something that happens at intellectual. Yeah, as maybe we mentioned here. Yeah, something happens at emotional. Yeah. If you steal somebody's online identity so that you can order goods on their behalf, how would you see that danger? To steal somebody's online identity. Physical, yeah. All. That's a very good point. All, yeah. Because emotionally, if that happens to you, emotionally, that would be quite worrying. Because you feel insecure, you feel attacked, you feel exposed. Yeah. Physically, obviously, because it may well incur costs or time, resources to address the situation. Finally, if you exclude someone from a learning group, so say in your school that there are pupils who organize learning groups around a specific subject, let's say physics, yeah, and then kids get together and then they decide to exclude one particular. I have a question here on what is the physical aspect of it? What is the physical aspect of the identity fraud? I guess this is the question. The physical aspect is the financial aspect. Yeah. So it's the financial aspect of having to pay. Yeah. So having to pay for goods that you didn't order. There's a physical aspect to that. Yeah.
Is it also phishing, Danny?
Say again.
Is it also the frauding? Is the phishing also? For
instance, phishing, the catfishing, the ratting. We'll see those examples in a moment. Yes, there is a physical aspect to it. Physical, not as in it hurts you on your body, but it's physical in that I have to pay now. Yeah. And that can come with if I have to pay for that, for instance, I may not be able to pay a bill. Yeah, I may be ruined. Yeah, you may see stories of old people, especially who are scammed out of the savings, and now because they lost all the money to a fraudster online, they may not be able to pay for the heating, for instance. That's a physical threat that happens.
Yeah, it happens these days for the old peoples in Turkey mostly because they are locked down and they can go out and withdraw their money, and they do the same. Yeah. Unfortunately.
And unfortunately, this is not a Turkish exclusivity. It happens here as well. It happens everywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And there are real physical as well as emotional consequences to it. So just to go back on the last part, then. We're saying, imagine the pupils in your school who are organizing a learning group around physics, as an example, and then they decide to exclude one particular student from the physics learning group. How would you classify this as physical, intellectual, or emotional abuse?
I think all.
Emotional and intellectual.
Yes. Selda wrote all.
Yeah, and then Fatma said emotional, intellectual, and emotional. Yes, I think intellectual and emotional, I would go with that. Emotional because obviously you feel bad if you feel excluded. Yeah, it would hit you most emotionally. But also intellectual because this person, we don't know, this person may have a talent for physics. But if they keep being excluded from physics in school, they will lose their love, their interest in physics, and may pursue a different career. So intellectually, they will be conditioned, yeah, in not wanting to follow this specific subject. Yeah, but you're right to say it's not clear cut. Okay, it's just with a distinction we can then look at it from different angles and try to find ways to address it from different angles. Okay, let me go on then to talk about the physical safety. Now, of the three levels I've mentioned, in a way, this is the simplest threat to address. Yeah, because it's the most evident. If it's physical, it's easier to spot. Now, it doesn't mean it's the easiest to address. It's not easy. It's just simpler. Yeah, because I can see it. Yeah. And the reason we expose ourselves to physical safety, I mentioned it before, is if we want to connect, we need to open up. Yeah. So, for instance, now we're connecting via GoToMeeting. I've opened my internet to the cloud, and you've done the same. And by opening it, in theory, I could come in, or somebody could come into my account and start looking around my computer. You may have heard recently, for instance, there have been concerns about the use of Zoom as an online meeting tool, because people said, well, if I use Zoom, I may open up my gate to my internet, to my computer, to hackers. Yeah. And recently, I think last week, Singapore, for instance, banned the use of Zoom in schools in Singapore, yeah, because there were security concerns. But again, this is a physical threat that I incur because I need to connect, so I need to open up. But because it's physical, I probably can see it easier, I can spot it easier. Another important thing as well, I think, is to notice is that when we are online, there are a lot of situations, and most situations really replicated from what we have in real life. So in real life, when you walk down the street, you can still meet unpleasant people, and you can meet them online as well. The difference obviously is, in real life, we have developed some sort of historic conscience that we know how to spot somebody we may like or not like. Online, we don't have that. We can't really spot them, or we haven't learned yet how to spot all those different telltales of characters that tells us, yes, this is somebody we should listen to, this is somebody we should not follow. So I just wanted to give you a few examples of issues that we may meet online. A few years ago, you may have heard of a guy called Snowden, who used to work for the CIA, and then he left and went a bit rebellious and said, "Oh, the CIA is spying, the FBI is spying on everyone. They have software that they can spy on everyone they want." There was even a big scandal, you may remember, because it resulted that they were spying on the mobile phone of the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel. They had put some software in there so they could spy on what she was saying, which was strange because Germany is meant to be an ally. The reality of this is that it doesn't really take much, yeah, for you even to spy on somebody or to be spied on. If you go on this website, for instance, mobile-spy.com, you can easily buy and install software that will track the person that you want to track. So for instance, you want to check on your children. It says employees, and a lot of this is used by spouses, so wives and or husbands who want to check on each other. So you can see where they go, how much time they spend there, what they do, all those different things. And you can install this software in your mobile phone, in a laptop, without the other person knowing. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a good spying tool if they noticed. Yeah. And this is an easy way to spy on people. Yeah. So we don't need the CIA to do it. We can just go on websites like this and buy it ourselves. A threat I mentioned before, it's called ratting. Rat. This is an acronym for remote access Trojans. So remote access Trojans means people get in touch with unsuspecting users, and they gain access to the computer, and also gains access to their webcam, for instance. But the user doesn't know about it, and the webcam can start recording. Yeah. And they just record everything until they find something they recorded that may be a bit embarrassing for the user, maybe a bit compromising for the user, maybe because they visited a web page that they shouldn't have been visiting, or maybe because they did something in front of the camera that they don't want anybody to know. And so the attacker then starts sending a request for money to the user, yeah, blackmailing. And this has developed into real industry. Now, one reason these things work is because we have a webcam. Yeah, I'm using the webcam. You can see me on the webcam, and I can actually not control if my webcam is being attacked or not. So if somebody manages to enter your system and switches the webcam on, you will not see it. You will not notice. Yeah, I've spoken to a couple of software developers on this, and they told me that they don't know how to stop it. So the best way to stop it is to have a webcam cover on your device, on your laptop, for instance, or on your mobile phone. So for instance, I use mine, I've got mine, I'm closing it now, and now you cannot see me. Yeah, and I keep it closed all the time. So even if somebody manages to keep control of my camera, they won't be able to see anything. Yeah. And I see that most of you have a webcam cover, and that's great. And I hope that you're also asking your pupils, yeah, to have one installed. It doesn't cost much. The one I have, actually, I got it for free because there are some with logos on it. So this is, they also have it as a marketing deliverable now. So it's quite easy to get hold of one. And I would strongly recommend you put one on your devices. Another kind of scam we talked about before briefly. So phishing, catfishing, basically people pretending to be somebody else online and creating their own online identity for a variety of reasons. It may be because they want to get money off you. It may be because they want to exploit you in different ways, especially with kids. There's big worries about grooming, sexual grooming, radicalization, and so forth. And so catfishing is a subtle but physical threat that we need to address. Another big area of concern, or where we should be concerned, is public Wi-Fi. So in order for, when you're in a public place, in order for you to connect to the Wi-Fi has to be made public. That means everybody can access it, provided they have the right password. And so security settings on Wi-Fi are not easy. So if you go in a Wi-Fi, for instance, and you go and check your bank account on the Wi-Fi, if somebody is logged onto the same Wi-Fi, they can get into your system and they can see what user ID and what password you used to go to your bank account. And then they can go to the bank account later and do, what they would do with your bank account. Even if you go on the public Wi-Fi and say you want to check your Gmail, you go in with your user ID and password, and they can get your Gmail user ID and password. And many users use the same password for many different applications. And so from there, if you give them the password, they can then try to enter many different sites that you use. So when we're on public Wi-Fi, we need to be very wary of the situation. So again, I expose myself because I want to connect, and therefore I need to take precautions. And so if I'm on a public Wi-Fi, I would never put my password in, I would never go to my bank account. I'll do those things when I'm back at home. Okay. Another aspect that I think we think that especially pupils or young people are at risk here, but then we can see that not just young people are affected, is you want to talk to somebody and you think, I'm only talking to one person, but then the whole world is actually listening. Everybody else can listen to what I'm saying. Can you imagine? And I think as well, we have a question here, a polling question. Did you have examples? What would you think would be a good, what would exemplify, a one-to-one communication, all of a sudden becoming one-to-many people communication? Zuhal, have you got the question here?
Yeah, Danny, we copied the question.
Okay, so what is a typical situation? A one-to-one communication becomes one-to-many communication, where you want to say something to one person only, but then everybody else finds out. Any ideas?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. For instance, I presume a majority of you are on Google, yeah, and you use Google Maps.
Team talk, writing a group chat instead of a person in WhatsApp.
Yeah. Although with Team Talk, the idea is that I may start talking to many. Yeah. But say if I send a picture to any of you and it's geotagged, and then the geotag is not secure, so it's open to anybody. A lot of people can see actually Danny was in this place at this time. Tweet, yeah. Tweet is a very good example because in Tweet you can do direct messaging, yeah. And so it's one-to-one. I only send it to you, but then that can be retweeted to everybody else. Yeah, Merve has a good question here. Isn't it about the importance of the information? Yes, but importance is relative. So again, if I take a picture of myself standing outside a building in London, it's not important to anyone. However, I don't live in London. And let's see at the next slide. Somebody may realize, oh, Danny is not at home. I better go and see what I can take from his house. Yeah. So there's different levels here. There's thieves who use, for instance, Facebook to see when people are in. Yeah, people posting pictures of them being on holidays. So okay, now I can go and rob their house. But at the same time, also the police, they go on Facebook and other social media, and they check what fugitives do. In UK, there's a division of police, and they specializing in social media. So if they need to look for a criminal, they find them on social media, and then they track them on social media, and then they wait until they find them. So a good example was this guy who had stolen quite a lot of jewelry, and he fled to Brazil because Brazil does not have extradition treaty with the UK, and so the UK could not go and arrest him in Brazil. And so what they did instead, they waited on Facebook until this guy posted on Facebook, guys, I'll be in the UK next weekend, hope we can meet up. And so when he arrived at the airport, the police were there waiting for him. And he was surprised. He thought, how do they know? Well, you put it on Facebook. And so that's how they knew. So this it's not just, here's another infographic, you know, shows that 80% of robbers check Twitter, Facebook, and Google Street View, yeah, to see if somebody is in or not. And so these are the importance of the information is very relative. So me saying I'm on the beach somewhere on holidays, it's not important. It may be interesting for my friends and family. They can be important in different ways. And this is something that we need to be aware of and also make young people aware of. Okay. The second level of threat I wanted to look at is the intellectual safety. Now, one way to stay safe online, we would teach our kids, is do not speak, do not contact, do not accept friendship requests of anyone you don't know. Yeah, that's the best way to stay safe. So you should only connect on your social media with people that you know in real life. Because as we said before, in real life, I know who my friends are. I can say who are not my friends, and so I follow the same thing in my say virtual world. Now, one of the big risks here is that we create the echo chamber effect. Echo chamber means that we interact only with people that we know, and we only interact with people with whom we agree. Yeah, so we always find ourselves in agreement, and that means that if I talk on social media, I will repeat ideas, concepts, hopes, faiths, whatever that other people I know already agree with, generally speaking, which means that there isn't this sort of disagreement, this sort of discourse evolving that may generate new ideas, that may generate the wealth of new ideas by being exposed to different points of view, with different challenges and different settings. Another problem we have with the internet is there's so much information around that it's very difficult to triangulate. And we will look at the threats that result from this wealth of information in a moment. But first, I wanted to show you this. It should be appearing on your screen now. It is there. Okay. And here we have a polling question, I think, as well. Any ideas of what this is? Like any ideas of what this could represent?
Connection.
Connection, yeah, it is connection. That's true. Interaction, very good, yeah. It is interaction. So it's interaction, but what's very interesting about this interaction,
Web
this is
connection. Another one is, because it was the private answer, web connection.
Web connection, yeah. So
Evren teacher.
Hackers and internet users, not quite. No, that's not internet users. This is actually
echo chamber effect.
Very good. That and that's exactly what it is. This is the echo chamber effect. This is an example taken from the 2010 elections in the US. So in the US they have elections of the Senate every 2 years. So and they had elections, and they studied the tweets. And actually the article to this, I've put it on Padlet. If you want, if you have time, you can go and read the article there as well. So basically, I can't remember the colors now. I think the blue ones are the Republicans and the red are the Democrats. And these are tweets sent between users. And so you see all the Republican tweets are on one side, and all the Democrat tweets are on the other side. And there's very little interaction between them. The biggest interaction is among them, which really represents this echo chamber effect, where people just repeat ideas and beliefs that they already have. So they're not contributing to a discourse that may advance the politics. And a lot of intersection you see in the middle between red and blue are actually not nice messages, are actually messages people having a go at each other, being offensive to each other because they have a different belief. And so this is an intellectual threat where we limit ourselves to knowing what we already know or what we already want to know. Yeah. Reinforcing what we want to know, but not exposing ourselves to different ideas, and then from there perhaps getting new insights or even a new confirmation for your own ideas. But it's not just in politics, and I think what we also need to be aware of is so for instance, Amazon. Yeah, I some time ago I started looking for a coffee machine on Amazon, and then Amazon thinks they know what I like, and so they save me all these models that I wasn't looking at and say, oh, you may also want to look at these models here. And the question is, how does Amazon know what we like? But also, why do I need to let Amazon tell me what I like? Because I may want to go a complete different direction with my choice of coffee machine, but Amazon somehow points me in the direction they want me to go. Yeah. And the question, are they listening to us? How does Amazon know? No, it's not they're listening to us. They are. I'll show you in a moment. But it's also, we tell them. They know because we tell them. Yeah, that's why they know. We tell them. And how do we tell them? Have a look. According to researchers, absolutely, because the search we do, but it's more than that, more than cookies, more than searches, and that's where it gets a bit worrying. Have a look at these logos. Do you recognize any of them? Do you recognize any of these logos? And so, Serbia, you say yes. You recognize?
Good. IMDb.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So, if you recognize some, what do you think do they have in common? What do you think do they have in common? Not the type. No, they have something else in common. Rating sites? No, they're not all rating sites. Ring, for instance, not a rating site. Entertainment, Ring again. Whole Foods is not. Your interest? Yeah, you're getting closer. Big letters. Yeah. What they have in common is they're all owned by Amazon. Amazon owns all of these. Yeah.
Wow.
So, for instance, Amazon Video, yeah, is owned by Amazon, and the International Movies Database is also owned by Amazon. And so on IMDb, people go and read about films, and they also give their the review of films. They tell you if they liked it, what they liked about it, what they didn't like, and so forth. And so Amazon collects billions and trillions of data on IMDb, and then they can use it to schedule their Prime Video offer. They know what people like, they know what people don't like, and based on that, they prepare the Prime Videos. The same with Goodread. Don't know whether you've seen Goodread before. It's an application where people read a book, and then they go on the application and they say what they thought about the book. Yeah, I like this book because, I didn't like this book for this reason. And there's millions and millions of people who give their information there. Obviously, Amazon owns Kindle, yeah, audiobooks, and they sell lots of books as well online. And again, the information we give them through Goodread helps them to prepare their offer on Kindle. The same thing with Whole Foods Market. Yeah. Amazon now starts selling food to people, and they get lots of information from there. I think if you have time, Ring. Do you know Ring, the application? Ring is an audio device that you can put, at the door at your entrance, where you ring to get into the house. Yeah, ding dong, normal thing, electronic. What it also has is an app. It has a video camera, and it has an app. So, for instance, if you're not at home and somebody rings at the door, you can see it on the mobile phone, and you can see who's in front of your door, and then you can talk to them because it's also got audio capability. Yeah. This is also owned by Amazon, which again raises the question: what does Amazon do with information they get from Ring? What security concerns, what security issues does that bring? If I have a device from my front door that talks to my mobile phone, again, I connect, I open up, somebody could hack it and get into there. But Amazon gets lots of user data from it, from Ring as well. Maybe the most worrying is in the middle. Do you know this logo is from Alexa? Do you know Alexa, the smart speaker? Have you heard of it? No, never. Okay. Only one, yes. Okay. Smart speaker. Google has a smart speaker. Apple has a smart speaker. As far as I know, Big C is from Samsung have a smart speaker as well. Imagine a smart speaker is it's a device, and you can talk to the device and say, Alexa, what's the weather like today? And Alexa goes on the internet, transforms your language, your sound, like Siri, correct? Siri. Yeah, like Siri. Siri is the Apple equivalent. Yeah, and then Alexa converts that from audio to data, and then goes on the internet, searches the question, what's the weather like today, and then converts it back into sound and tells you today it's nice weather. Yeah, that kind of things. One interesting or warning thing is that if I say, hi Alexa, so what's the next train to London? And Alexa goes and finds it and tells me, Alexa stays switched on. If then I have a side conversation with somebody else next to Alexa, Alexa picks that up and converts that into data and stores it somewhere for Amazon to use. If I'm near to Alexa and the visitor comes and they start talking to me and ask me, have you got an aspirin? I've got a headache, for instance. Amazon now will know that somebody in my household had a headache on that day. Yeah? And they collect tons and tons of data like that they can use to structure their offering. And so tell me then later on, oh, by the way, do you want my aspirin? Because I know you've been using aspirin in the past 2 weeks. Yeah. And so Amazon knows all these things because we tell them. Another aspect to consider from, by the way, I just seen the message, I like Siri. I'm not saying Siri or Alexa are not nice to use. I'm just saying, let's be aware that we are providing tons of information to the producer who then uses it to structure our life. We need to be aware of that. Yeah. Another aspect that is worth, from an intellectual safety point of view, it's worth analyzing when we go on the internet is this. There's too much information on the internet for anybody, for any human anyway, to make sense of it. I like this quote from Mitch Kapoor, who founded Lotus Development many years ago. He says that getting information from the internet is like drinking water from a fire hydrant. You basically get wet and you don't drink that much. This means that if I do an internet search, it's difficult for me to identify which information is true, which is a bit iffy, which is completely false. So triangulation becomes important, but it's also difficult because there's so much information about it. From this wealth of information, because it's difficult to triangulate, another danger that comes out are fake news. And now, say in COVID-19, it's a good time for people to create fake news because there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of worries around. And so creating fake news is easy, yeah, and it's also good money. And I think that's a very important aspect to remember. Fake news is good money. On the Padlet, I'll call it up quickly. I have put an article here, a story uncovered by CNN on fake news factories in Northern Macedonia. Yeah, that gives you an idea of how fake news are created, why they are created, yeah, and what's the economic model behind it. Yeah, just as an example, yeah, again to raise awareness about fake news. Okay, the last level then to talk about is the emotional safety on the internet. There's two things really that for me are important at this level. First is it is the most serious danger because it is the danger that it's most difficult to spot. Yeah, and so to address it is difficult because we can't really spot it that easily. The other aspect as well is when we talk to young people, you know, we want you to stay safe online. It requires it's not about learning how to please others. Yeah, that's not emotional safety. So I do not conform so that you accept me. That's not emotional safety. It's not about learning how to please others, but it's about learning how to be pleased with oneself. Yeah. So in this image, there's that one little robot who likes to stand upside down, and that's okay. If that person learns how to do it and is emotionally secure to do it, then that is emotional safety. Yeah. What we need to be aware as well is when we go online, the same actions that may take place in the real world, they take on a completely different dimension. So if I say to somebody on the street, "You're stupid because I don't like you," whatever, that's done. That goes away, and most people will forget that within a few months, within years, whatever. And not everybody's heard it. But if I put that in a tweet, for instance, that stays there forever. It cannot be changed. It will be brought back all the time, and we need to be very careful of that. Where I live, when I spoke to police about these aspects, I was told that in most schools, well, not in most schools, but at any time, there's at least one young person, usually female, who are on suicide watch in school. And they are on suicide watch because they have shared some pictures with friends, typically for boyfriends, that they now regret. And that picture of them has gone viral, has been distributed everywhere. And you know, this person can't cope with it emotionally, and they now have been put on suicide watch. That means they are at risk of committing suicide. And so at any one time, there's at least one person in school on suicide watch. And that's terrible, that's horrible to think about that. And it's not because the person who done it is stupid or is ignorant. In school, we talk a lot about the importance of behaving properly on social media, and so they know. they did not go into social media thinking, I may get at risk of doing something. They went into social media thinking, I'm fine, this is okay, this will not happen to me. Its emotional intelligence has not been developed enough to alert them of the risks, and then if the risks do occur, to protect themselves from it. And so that's why I wanted to underline the importance of emotional education as well, to be safe online. I wanted to give you a few examples of what this means. So we talk about conversations and how they can hurt, for instance. And I brought this image up because I thought this image is quite indicative when we talk to each other. So in this image, there's a team that talks to each other, and they talk very closely so the opposition doesn't hear them. So they only talk to each other, and they say what they're going to do next. And in this sport, because it's a physical sport, they probably also say what they're going to do to the opposition. So the message here can be quite offensive and disparaging, and can be motivating to those who are part of it. And so they may say nasty things about the other team. At the same time, the other team are excluded from this conversation. Yeah, so you leave them out. You leave them out because they're different from you. You wear red in this picture, they wear red. The others may wear a different shirt, and so you exclude them. Yeah, and that can be hurtful as well when people are excluded, consciously excluded, or maybe consciously included only for certain topics. You mistreat them, and this is quite difficult to address because it's not so obvious, and you can't really force people to talk to each other. And it's a strange hurt and feeling, but it's something that does happen and that it does impact people. So it's something that is quite difficult, and we need to look at it. At the same time, this image obviously is games, and there's lots of online games. And there's quite a bit of emotional abuse going on in online games. So for instance, Merve here gives an example of bad language. Yes, bad language, offensive language, disparaging language. Yes, this is a typical example of emotional abuse in online games. Ganging up on each other. So ganging up means a group of people attacking one player. It only happens online, so it's not in real life. But if you ever heard of the game, for instance, of Call of Duty, Call of Duty, one of the problems with Call of Duty is that it allows people to create a group and attack individuals. On a physical level, it doesn't really impact them, but an emotional level, it does, because that's combined with bad language, with offensive language, disparaging language, and you know, stops certain players from progressing in the game, and they have emotionally invested in the game, so it becomes important to them. We also do, especially games like Call of Duty and other shooter games, it de-empathizes players, yeah, where you learn to hurt people, only virtually, but you learn to hurt other people, to shoot other people, and it makes the action of violence, it makes it somehow acceptable. Yeah, it makes it normal, standard. Empathy is an emotional skill that really starts fully developing, blossoming when kids are about 13, 14 years old. Until then, it's difficult for them to completely empathize, and they start developing it at that age. And a lot of young people start playing those games just around that age, so they naturally develop some empathy, and then those activities may block that development of empathy. So from an emotional point of view, it's quite subtle, but online games can be quite abusive. Another aspect of emotional threat we see online is a cognitive bias. Cognitive bias such as you see on Twitter, you see even on LinkedIn, you see on Facebook, and you think everybody's having a fantastic life. You know? Because nobody posts pictures of a bad time, everybody posts pictures of the great times they're having. And especially with celebrities, you see they have this, they're so beautiful, they have incredible hair, they have incredible skin, and then you look at yourself and say, oh, I'm miles away from that. How's that possible? social media especially also creates this competition among users. Yeah, who wants to have more, who wants to be better, who wants to achieve more. And then you think you have to be and compete, otherwise you're left out. And some social media functionalities have gamified approaches which actually exacerbate this aspect of competition among users. For instance, if you know the social media called Snapchat, and it's not just Snapchat, by the way, other social media have similar aspects. So Snapchat gives you a score for every message you sent and received back. So your activity on Snapchat, the more you're active, the more points you get, and then you see a score. And that kind of gives like this bias, oh, I want to have a higher score, I want to do more, I want to do more. So I keep conversing more, I keep sending more messages, even though sooner or later I get to the point where I don't have anything to say. I still want to say it because it gives me high points. Yeah. It also gives you something, a feature called a streak. So if I send you a message and you send me a message back every day, then it gives you a streak where it say, okay, we've been on a conversation now for 2 or 3 days, 40 days, 50 days, and it's like a record. The longer I go on, the higher my streak, and I don't want to interrupt that streak. If we started having conversation 40 days ago and every day we have a message exchange, it goes higher and higher. I don't want to stop that. I want to go higher. I want to reach a record. And by the way, the record is something around 2000 and something, and it's being publicized. The longest streak on Snapchat. And so your cases where young people maybe have to go on holiday and they won't have access to the internet, which would mean their streak on Snapchat will be interrupted, but they can't cope with that idea. And so they give the access details to a friend who continues to streak on Snapchat for them during their absence. And so here we have again an emotional issue connected to a physical issue, because now I've given access to my social media to somebody else, somebody I think I may trust or not. For the cognitive bias, I've used this image. You may recognize this image of a goose and a chicken. I've seen you've got a beautiful saying in Turkish that the chicken of your neighbor looks like a goose to you. Yes, well, just posted it there. And this is the cognitive bias that I think is being created on the internet. Yeah. Everybody else always looks great. One thing I would suggest you, to kind of urge you to look on the Padlet, is this beautiful video created by Dove. You may know Dove. They create soap and care products for the skin, and they've done this video about real beauty, what real beauty really is, and how it looks, and how it's very subjective. It's 3 minutes. You can easily share it with your pupils. They've done a few videos like that. I think this is it's very succinct but very powerful. So the one thing I would ask you to look at this Padlet, please have a look at the real beauty. Okay, so let's go back. And there's a comment by Stella. Yeah, the dependent games and becoming imaginary heroes. Absolutely. And it's that dependence that's being created by this cognitive bias, by this emotional attachment to it. And dependency is never good. Yeah. And for an emotional aspect, this is exactly, to create some resilience, emotional resilience, to be able to allow users to be able to withstand that and to handle it properly. Okay. How do we keep it safe? How do we keep pupils safe on the internet? On this image, do you think the fish, is it safe or not safe, and why? It says not safe. Why not safe? Okay. Not safe because it's in the cage. Okay. Not safe, but in danger. Okay. So it is. Yeah, it has been caught. That's true. Cannot escape. Absolutely good. Now, if it does escape, if it goes out of the net, this is a net stream. Yeah, exactly. So whoever says, yeah, they have to go out of the cage. Yeah. At the moment, I think that fish is safer, because if it goes into the big sea, a shark will come and will eat it. Yeah. Yeah. According to the point of view. Yeah. So the net we've cast around the fish may be for the fish's own protection. Yeah. And that's something that we need to do. Yeah. The fisherman, yeah. It's something that we need to do. We need to cast a protective net, if you want. But sooner or later, as it's been pointed out by Merve, when they grow up, they need to go out, but they need to be able to go out and know what to do. Zelda asks an intriguing question. YouTubers, how do you mean YouTubers? Whether they are like YouTubers? Okay, it's like, yeah. Yeah, we have to teach them how to swim in the ocean safely. Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's the safety in the net. And so, if I may then just proceed to the next one. As an educator, as an adult, yeah, I would see that the actions to take on 3 levels. One is to anticipate, one is to respond, and one is to refrain. Sounds straightforward, sounds easy. Let's see if it is as easy as it may sound. So let's see, how do we anticipate things? You know, when you say anticipate, something I mentioned is walk the walk. Walk the walk means, first of all, being a role model. Yeah. So you mentioned before, most of you have a webcam cover. Great. So let's show your pupils I have a webcam cover, and that's why I have it. There's certain things I do on the internet, and certain things I don't do on the internet. It's a role model. But a walk the walk for me also goes further. Yeah. If you look at these logos, these are logos of 16, I think, 8 or 18 even, of the most used social media in the world. Yeah. Do you recognize them? Did you recognize some of them? And which one, if I may ask, which one do you use? Which social media literature do you use? So maybe, yeah, you recognize most of them. Which ones do you use then? You recognize most of them? WhatsApp, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, Skype. Instagram, Twitter mostly. Pinterest is favorite of Can said. Okay, interesting.
Muhalefetin önerisiyle meclise gelen sağlıkta şiddet yasa teklifi AKP ve MHP'nin oylarıyla reddedilmişti. Sağlıkta şiddet önlemeyi
Foursquare, yeah, good. Facebook, okay, 1 or 2 Facebooks, 3 Facebook, okay. And which ones do your kids use? Do you know? Yeah, 5. I don't think 5 is here. I think it's Foursquare here. TikTok, yeah, Snapchat. So, what I find interesting is my students mostly use Instagram, good. WhatsApp most, okay. And I think TikTok, unfortunately, okay, it could be an interesting conversation to have with Umut. Why do you think it's unfortunate to use TikTok? Snapchat, TikTok. Yeah. What I find interesting is this is I think 2020 screenshot worldwide stats of the age and female male so demographics of Facebook users, and you see that the 13 to 17-year-olds are really low in use of Facebook. It goes up at the next stage, and then really the big bulk seem to be in the 25 to 34-year-olds, and then it goes down again. I'm sorry, something happened. Here we go. Okay, sorry. So this is worldwide. I've seen the same stats just for the USA, and in the USA, Facebook users in the teenager years is very, very low, even lower than this. and the highest group are people aged, I think, 45 to 70. So over 50% are middle-aged or older. Yeah, in the United States. Worldwide, it works out a bit differently. What's also interesting here is obviously they can't say there's anybody younger than 13 using it because it would be illegal, but we know there's a lot of kids who are younger than 13 that are on social media, except I don't believe they'll be on Facebook now. And as Philly says, yeah, they think Facebook is old-fashioned, absolutely. And so a lot more are on Snapchat. And I know this is regional, is different, because from what I understand in Turkey, kids are less on Snapchat. They tend to be more on TikTok and Instagram. And so this is, again, worldwide distribution. And you see here, 69% are actually 13 to 17-year-old. Yeah. So not 2.5% like in Facebook. Yeah. So this is the usage of Snapchat is young people. And so if we want to understand social media so that we can talk to young people about social media, we need to understand the social media they are using. It's no good being an expert in Facebook. Your kids won't use Facebook. Yeah, it's better to know, for instance, Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok. Yeah, so that you understand what they're looking for, what they're doing, what the usage is, and so forth. And the best way to do it is not to go and research it yourself, but somehow integrate it into existing activities in school and try to understand what they use it for, how they use it, when they use it, and so forth, so that you can be alerted, you can be made aware of any danger that lies in that social media. Another reason is that this changes. You know, Facebook was everything a few years ago, became Twitter, became Pinterest, now there's TikTok, there's Snapchat. It keeps changing, so you can't keep updating yourself. But you kids will know all about it. And so if you can integrate it, for instance, you know, Snapchat has a feature that allows users to make them look younger, yeah, make them look, you know, healthier skin and so forth. And there's other software out there that allows you to, say, Photoshop your images on social media. And so maybe have a look at those tools with your kids in school, and integrate it, for instance, in IT studies or in arts. Yeah, in arts, how can we change the appearance of people? Yeah, so you can see what happens. Okay. So this is what I was saying, keeping it safe. So walk the walk, yeah, anticipate by knowing what they are using, let them tell you what they're using, and always be a role model. Training is very important, your peers, the pupils, but also the parents. Yeah, often parents may feel a bit like a loss. Should we allow them social media? Should we not allow them? What can they do? But by explaining them what it is, you create more awareness. Code of conduct. Establish a code of conduct. Can I just quickly ask, does your school have, out of curiosity, does your school have a code of conduct for internet use? No. Okay, interesting. What I mean by code of conduct, the setup has one, very interesting. So I give you an example of code of conduct here. So remember at the beginning, I asked you, what are the rules to keep the webinar interesting? Yeah. This is a code of conduct. This is where we said, if we want to follow these rules, so everybody's fine in doing the webinar, and the webinar will be interesting. It means these are guidelines that we've produced together, and then everybody agrees to it and signs up to it. And in terms of compliance, it's a lot better if, say, young people contribute to the code of conduct and then sign up to it, as opposed to they're being told what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. Compliance makes it different. At the same time, on Padlet, I've given you example of code of conduct for children and adults working with children for the national, from a UK institution called the NSCC. It's here on Padlet. There's two on the left. I'll strongly suggest you have a look at it to be able to create your own code of conduct. Quicker than keeping it safe, a duty of care. A duty of care means that if you see something, you cannot unsee it. You can't pretend not to have seen it. And so everywhere that you see something maybe going on, really you need to take action. You need to report it. And any allegation made, you need to take seriously. So if you hear of something that is happening or something that may be happening, you need to take action. And again, in this instance, it would be very useful to have a code of conduct, because then it would tell you what you need to do next, and also it would tell you whether what's happening is acceptable or not. And finally, also keeping it safe, refrain. Refrain means do not follow any unstructured interaction. Don't text message your pupils singly. Don't send them a message on just looking at the question. So don't send message. Don't send comments on social media. Don't ask to be friend with a pupil. If a pupil asks you to be friend on social media, you should say no. Yeah, that's not something that you should be able to, you should do, because from a safeguarding issue, it will create some problems. The question here we have is, what would you do if a parent of a pupil, so if a pupil asks you to be friends, you should say no on social media, and then you should talk to the person and explain why you can't do it. But what would you do if a parent would ask you to be friends? So everybody says no. I would say no. Anybody else? Would you? What would you do? No. Some of your colleagues accept. Okay, you ignore them. I think you have the right idea there. I think you have to say no. But I wouldn't ignore them. I would try to speak to them in person and explain to them why. Yeah, because you need to keep that private sphere very separate from work. Yeah, you don't want to be followed by teachers, by parents who then may be able to use your social media life and hold it against you. Yeah, there's some risks occurring from them. So it's best to keep it separate, but it's also good practice to explain them why. So you can keep them. You don't create a feeling of bias towards some pupils as opposed to others because you're friends with their parents online. Yeah. That'd be important to do. And then also very important in the current situation, live streaming lessons from your home is quite dangerous, because at the moment what you can see from here is very limited. I've just given you a wall at the back and you can't see anything else. But if you, without thinking, live stream lessons from your home, you give away images of your home, and again, that's information you pass on, maybe used for different purposes by the people. Yeah. On the Padlet, again, there's an interesting article by the National Union of Teachers in the UK advising against live streaming from home and the reasons for it. Yeah. And that's something that, if you have time, I suggest you read. And I understand we are a bit under time pressure, so I just get to the conclusion here. The keeping it safe, those points I've listed, anticipate, respond, refrain. Really, the most important, in my opinion, is the first one, is walk the walk. Make sure you're aware of what's going on, and make sure you're a role model always, and then that will help propagate good practices. Before I say thank you for listening, I also wanted to let you notice I've added some resources at the back of this presentation that will be shared with you, so you can go in there and read up. And with that, I've come to the end of the structured presentation. As well, I think we can take any questions.
Yeah, I'm checking the chat part, but yeah. Yes, do you have any questions for Danny? Thank you. Yeah.
So what teacher are you going to write on Padlet of Danny's?
Okay. Would you like to show the page of it again? Yeah. My name was kind of okay.
So the Padlet,
okay.
I'll share it. I think you already put it there before.
Yeah, I also copied the link. Okay. Danny, thank you for your wonderful webinar. And also, one of our teachers recommended to put the subtitles to your video before releasing our YouTube channel, to let the other teachers watch your video. Yes, because the information that you share with us were very, very useful for all of our all teachers. And Yes, in Turkish. So yeah, we will. Makes me feel like in Black Mirror.
Yeah.
These are the comments. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, somebody said, I invite you to school. Yes, I'd love to come to school and do workshops with teachers and/or pupils. That's always very interesting.
Nice for this useful webinar contributions. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. And the teachers, thank you for your contribution. And Danny, thank you for your wonderful webinar, and hope to see you again.
Yeah.
And with the different topics, maybe.
Sure. Anytime. Thanks for that.
Okay.
Yeah, been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day and stay safe.
Yes,
Cheers.
just we have one question before, yes or no.
Yeah.
How we socializing these days without social media?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And it seems very difficult these days to socialize without social media. In fact, we rely on social media. My father is 86-year-old, and just recently he learned how to use WhatsApp. He discovered the internet, and now we can socialize via video, which is fantastic, because otherwise we wouldn't see each other. So we can't really these days. So the point is not to use social media. The point is just to be aware of the dangers that social media poses.
Yeah, they want to learn. Yes, her line was cut off. Yes, we will edit the videos, and then we will share the link with you maybe the next week, and share the link with you before releasing the YouTube. But also we need to insert some subtitles. It may take time. Yeah, because the teachers want to know when they can watch the video again.
The video, yeah.
But we need time to insert this subtitles and also editing the video.
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll get there. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a nice day, everyone. Stay safe. Cheers.
Bye-bye.